week 4 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers this week. The first guy is Sam Darnold of the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers so far off to a 3-0 start, surprisingly, this season. And Sam Darnold, he's played good fantasy football, and he's played good football with a good rapport with DJ Moore and obviously Christian McCaffrey before he went down in week 3 to Houston. So week 1 versus former team, the Jets, 279 passing yards, a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a fumble loss. Week 2 versus the Saints, 305 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. And week 3 versus the Houston Texans, 304 passing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So Darnold here, he's doing a little bit of everything. And this week here, week 4 at the Dallas Cowboys, it's a good matchup in my opinion. We've seen quarterbacks have good days versus the Cowboys so far in the early going, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to QBs. And I think this ball game could be a mini shootout here between the Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. So right here, Sam Darnold is definitely a sleeper start this week. The next quarterback I got as a sleeper is Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers. So the Niners, so far, they've been playing pretty good football, 2-1 on the season. And Jimmy G in the early going this year, every fantasy game, he's got 19 or more fantasy points to go with it. So right there, that's pretty good football. And he's also available still in 89% of fantasy leagues, so deeper leagues and 2 quarterback leagues. I don't think it's a bad start for Jimmy G versus the Seattle Seahawks in a ball game where I think it's going to be a shootout between these NFC West division foes here. And Garoppolo, the last couple games, week 1 at Detroit, 314 passing yards, a touchdown. Week 2 at Philly, in a low-scoring game, he still went 189 passing yards and a touchdown with 20 rushing yards and a TD. In week 3, in that game where they almost pulled off the comeback in the victory, 257 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and Into and a fumble loss versus Green Bay. So right here in week 4 versus Seattle, they're going to have no choice but to keep going up and down the field. You know, every game with Seattle is pretty much in the high 20s, early 30s the scoring goes by. So right here, I think Jimmy G once again cracks 20 fantasy points and has a good day. And the third and final quarterback I have as a sleeper this week's Terra Heineke of the Washington football team. So far, Heineke, he's gone out there and he's thrown some good football games here, even though he lost last week at the Buffalo Bills in a blowout game in the first 2 starts for him. Week 2 versus the Giants, 336 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and then into week 3 of Buffalo in the blowout loss, 212 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 with those 21 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown for Heineke. So Heineke here, we know he's a gamer. We know he could go out there and put up decent fantasy stats so far this season with both games over 25 fantasy points that he started. In week 4, he's got a layup matchup at the Atlanta Falcons that give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So Heineke, he's out there in 91% of fantasy leagues. And I think if you're in a pinch in a deeper league or 2 quarterback league, he's a pretty good sleeper start this week. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for week 4 of the fantasy football season.